Trudeau is not having the best start to his week. The adults have left the room, and now he's dealing with the children. Marty up north, thanks for joining me once again. Holy cow, what a week. We got a bunch to talk about.
I think your opening segment is spot on. I think the Liberals had one of the worst weeks I've seen him have in a long time. Like and Trudeau's in full blown hiding. I mean, I made a tweet. I think it was yesterday or today. I think it was yesterday. Like, I was thinking of Scarface, and I'm thinking Trudeau's having that Tony Montana moment. Like he's about to come out on the balcony with of Parliament Hill with his bazooka and say hello to my little friend.
First you get the money, then you get the power.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I mean his friends are abandoning him. The media is abandoning him. Business is abandoning him. The voters are abandoning him, and he's in hiding right now. Well, he's not in hiding. Well, he was in hiding until and
his own party are posting their L's. I mean, this is getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I posted this one. This is a tweet that I put out this week. Liberals posting their L's because they showed this is the Liberal Party. This is the actual Liberal Party tweeting this out. Only a few weeks ago, or March 8th, 2024, Poilievre says corporate lobbyists in Ottawa are utterly useless. And then March 26, 2024, corporate lobbyists are flocking to Pierre Poilievre's what they call cash for access fundraiser. But this is actually a telltale sign of where things are going in Ottawa. The people with the money, the donor class, they know who's going to win the next election. And they're looking at it going, well, let's put our money to who's going to win. Like, why would we donate to the Liberals? There's absolutely no point in that.
No, it's like I said, it's been a bad week for him. I mean, it's been a bad month, right? It's been a bad year. He's been tanking in the polls, right? And I'm sure he looks at the polls and he can blow off the polls. Like he loves to blow off the polls and say, what does he say? He says, I was in an equally bad situation in the last 3 elections and I still managed to win them. And I call a bit of bullshit. I don't think you were this bad. So he's had a bad week. He's hired new people to help with his PR. It was obvious 2 weeks ago with the new budget. He's doing a bit of a pivot. What did he call his new budget?
Fairness for every generation. They calling it now.
Fairness, yeah.
This is a great way to pit people against each other again. It's divide and conquer, the same way as always. Let's go with the haves and the have-nots. Let's go with the boomers and the millennials and the Gen Xers and the Zoomers.
Yeah, and it was a disguised way to prepare for his backup, which is always tax the rich or tax the 1% and ask them to do a little bit more for the others. But so he's got this. Yeah, he has this PR. He does this budget. He's pivoting. He's now trying to bring back the Gen Zs and the millennials on board. So he promised them a couple of things in the budget. But anyways, long story short, his budget didn't resonate with anyone. It didn't resonate with anybody.
Well, here's the clip. I have the clip of him talking about it because this is his, we're making the wealthiest pay a little more so we can deliver for every generation. Here's what he had to say.
I think the opposition is recognizing that there is concern and anxiety out there. The thing is, though, they're not offering any solution at all for it. And I believe, the biggest choice and the biggest difference between me and the Conservatives right now is they don't think government has a role to play in solving for these problems and these challenges. And I think government can't solve everything, and nor should it try. But it can make sure that if the system isn't working for young people, that we rebalance the system. Market forces are not going to do that at all. Like one of the things we did in this budget, we're doing in this budget is we're raising capital gains. So the wealthiest 0.1% pay a little more. Capital gains will still be lower than they are in California and New York, for example. So it's not going to go after innovation, but it's bringing in money so we can actually invest more in young people, in fairness, in those kinds of things. And that's something that the Conservatives are totally against.
So how much money has left the country just in anticipation of this, Marty? Like, this is the reality of this situation.
Yeah, we'll go to that in a second. I'm just going to make a note because, yeah, the markets are not happy right now.
No.
But, you know, at the beginning of his speech, he's like, you know, the Conservatives think that governments should step out of the way, kind of thing. It's like, no, what we're saying now, what Canadians are saying is, you screwed up. The problems that we are facing right now are caused by a government, his government.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he's completely unwilling to acknowledge that he had a role to play in this problem, right? Mass immigration, oh, that's not my problem. High inflation, oh, that's not my problem. High interest rate, no, that's not my problem.
Well,
you created,
and he was
all these
right
problems.
on the cusp of saying redistribute the wealth. I mean, it's like, it was almost like he was about to read the Communist Manifesto in that speech.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. He was like right on the cusp of it.
No, so yeah, so to your question, how much money has left the country? Hard to tell, but you know, last week when he published a budget, he put that in there, this little tidbit of, we're going to change the inclusion rate for capital gains, and then he said this only going to affect the super rich. That's how he tried to portray it. Well, it turns out after the economists have had a week to look at the budget, they're all going, whoa, this is huge, man. And they confirm what you and I talked about. He's going after the boomers. I mean, he might not be going after the boomers' primary residence, but he's going after the boomers' secondary residence. Turns out that 10% of Canadians have a cottage. And so people said you have to be ultra rich. If you're a Canadian, if you're a, you know, a 60-year-old Canadian with a second cottage somewhere, whether it's in the Muskokas or in the interior BC, and your second cottage is worth $600,000, that you're wealthy, and that's money Trudeau wants to go after. So so that's one group that's affected. The economists also realize groups like doctors and dentists are, you know, do you have that clip? I mean, somebody brought that up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have this clip right now. Let's pull this up.
There has been some pushback that this could affect family doctors and other professionals who incorporate their practice for the tax advantages that a corporation would have. So while individually, if they were, say, working, you know, in a hospital, they would not necessarily be affected by the new capital gains inclusion. But if their corporate structure is such that they're relying on corporate investments to pay for their future and their retirement, they're going to be hit. And that in a country that's already struggling to have enough family doctors, this creates a disincentive for some of them to work in Canada.
We recognize that, but one of the things that we will continue to do is encourage foreign credential recognition to help we know that coming out of the pandemic, our healthcare has really been hampered, and there's a really challenge with labor. But the investments we made with foreign credentialing, we've already made a significant investment in previous budgets, and in this year we've topped that up, and we will continue to invest to ensure we're encouraging bringing talent from other countries to get their credentials recognized, and that will also encourage them to get more jobs here and fill the desperate labor market needs that are required in our healthcare industry.
So he basically says we're going to lose doctors because of this. They're going to leave the country because of, you know, doctors don't just incorporate for that reason. They incorporate for a lot of reasons, liability, all these other things. But
they have a lot of overhead, right? When you're setting up your business as a doctor or a dentist, you're buying chairs, equipment. Yeah,
exactly. And then if you're going to get nailed with this tax, they've already made it so difficult for doctors to make a living, pay back all the schooling they have to go through, all of this stuff, and then be able to employ all these people, have a practice, and now they're nabbing them for this. And what's her response? Well, you know, we're trying to open up immigration so we can get more doctors. We're not getting more doctors. We're getting more Uber drivers. We're getting more fast food workers.
But here, Clyde, go to my Twitter feed, and I just reposted something. It should have bumped up to the top of my feed. It's a video of Trudeau talking to Peter Mansbridge just before the 2015 election.
Is this the one here?
Yeah, that one. Play that. You'll hear this.
Be a cut for small business.
We'll probably have things to say about it, but we have to know that a large percentage of small businesses are actually just ways for wealthier Canadians to save on their taxes, and we want to reward the people who are actually creating jobs and contributing in concrete ways. So there's a little tweaking to do around that.
So he just says that by building a business, you're just a tax loophole? Get out of town.
He telegraphed it in 2015. I mean, that's
Holy
how
cow.
he thinks about. That's how he thinks about small business or anybody who gets ahead in life, as far as he's concerned, other than him. Anybody who gets ahead in life is doing it by stepping on somebody else or doing something unfair.
Well, is that maybe
And-
projection? Maybe that's how he got ahead in his life, you know?
Yeah. No. So
Well, another point I want to add to this is this 1%, or you hear about the low class, the lower income earners, the middle income earners, the higher income earners, and then the 1%. How many people are constantly in the 1% or the 0.1%? Is that a steady class of people, or are those is that a transient class of people that come in and are no longer in it the next year?
Well,
and that's the thing, right? Most people.
Yeah, as if you look at the 1% in terms of earnings in a given year, I was once in the 1%. About 4 or 5 years ago, when I was at the peak of my career, I would have been, I made solid 6 figures. I would have been considered a 1%. But I'm done now. I mean, I'm retired and I'm not collecting the money, so I'm out of there, and I'm going to be replaced by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
It's
then
a transient
and vice versa.
class. But it makes it sound like,
Absolutely.
oh, these people, they're always on top and they're the ones. But this is this whole
same with the other extreme of the distribution, right? Clyde, somebody who's a student or a young adult who's making 50,000 that has aspiration and will move through the tax brackets, and someday that young adult will likely be middle class and upper class. I mean, yeah, we move through the brackets, absolutely.
Well, this is the whole thing that I've argued for a while here, is the transient classes. They're not static like politicians, especially socialists, want to portray them as. And this is where it's like they're propagandizing you. They're giving you an idea that's a false premise. It's not that these single group of individuals are stealing all the wealth of the nation. It's a transient class. It's not always the same people, and a lot of times they come and go because businesses succeed and fail and have good years and have bad years, and that's always the way it's been.
Well, and think of that clip of about a doctor or a dentist. I go to a dentist every year and a half. I mean, the dentist I go to, he's got a little business. He's got a guy. He hires about 5 or 6 dental technicians. He's got a receptionist. He's to slam a dentist as like. Listen, I mean, I don't understand why we slam business people in this province or in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a dentist is not. Yeah. So what if at the end of his hard work, he makes $100,000 and extra at the end of the year, and he drives a freaking Lamborghini? I really don't care. In the process, he paid the salaries of 6 other people. Like, man, yeah, it's a weird. It's
envy. It's the politics of envy, and it really is disgusting, especially coming from people like Trudeau, who's never worked a hard day in his life. Jagmeet Singh, his brother lobbying against the grocery, lobbying for a grocery firm while he's lobbying against. It's disgusting. It's disgusting, these people that advocate for this thing. And what is it? What is the reality of the situation? What is the end product of this? Well, they call it the brain drain. And here's RCI. I guess this is it's a branch of CBC posting
it's
this.
Radio Canada in French.
Oh, okay.
It's the French version of Radio Canada, I think. Yeah, it is.
Capital gains tax change draws ire from some Canadian entrepreneurs who worry it will worsen the brain drain. And this is a concept that's been around before in Canada and was real. And they we reversed the brain drain at one point, and now it's right back, and we're losing professionals. I mean, Canada's about to lose a mechanic. I mean, I'm eyeballing the United States of America. I'm a dual citizen, and I'm losing my rental here. I don't want to pay 3 times what I'm currently paying when I can just cross the border and go work somewhere warmer and not bust my knuckles as much on rusty vehicles.
No, there isn't an economist this week who said that this was a good idea. Not one. And then even more damning was the parliamentary budget officer himself, right? So the budget got presented. Then the next day there's a committee meeting where they get to bring in the I guess the parliamentary budget officer is the one who puts together the budget. Anyways, he got brought in and he was asked a bunch of questions, and he basically slapped the Liberals on the wrist, because he basically said, I thought some of these things were bad ideas, but I'm just the guy who goes along and puts it together. And one thing that he mentioned, he was critical of the capital gains changes, and then he was also very surprised that component of the budget doesn't take effect until like June or July. And he basically said, we're giving rich Canadians a chance to get the hell out of the country before the law comes into effect. And then this week, people said, holy shit. I mean, it coincides with summer, but there's an incredible amount of houses that went up for sale on the market this week. And then the stock market's had a brutal day. Like it's earnings seasons. So again, it coincides a little bit, but the stock market took a beating, and people are drawing the parallel, going like, Canadians are selling their Canadian stocks, taking their gains now, and then they'll move over to the US. I mean, and that we've talked about this. The really, really rich, even the moderately rich, they don't have to stay here. You don't have to stay here. No. Nobody has to stay here. The world is different than it was in 1940, man. You can, like, people can get up and move.
Yeah, absolutely.
And go incorporate it. Yeah.
When people with any investments, like even people who are staying in Canada but have investments, they can pull their investments here in Canada and move them to another country. That's the reality of it. We have a capital drain, we have a brain drain, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, as this occurs, it means a more and more economic slowdown, which means what? The government's going to come in and give more people government jobs. So we're going to add more to the supposed GDP to make the numbers look good.
That'll be next week's topic, because next week we're going to have some really good ammo to talk about. We're going to have the Bank of Canada's annual report and all sorts of good stuff like that. But let's stay on the Liberals having a bad week. So nobody believed their budget. It got chewed apart. They're going on the road trying to promote their budget. Chrystia Freeland was in Newfoundland saying, we're going to build 240,000 homes. A journalist points out the obvious, the most Newfoundland's ever built in a single year is 2,500 homes. Mm-hmm. So you're not just going to increase that by a factor of 10. You want to go by a factor of 100. Good luck.
Yeah. There's no tradesman to do it. That's the problem.
No. And so that was a bad moment. But then late in the week, or mid of the week, yesterday, the Liberals got something. They got finally something to, some good news for us. And that was in Pierre Poilievre stopping by and visiting the tax protest.
Right. So right. I've got.
So now, they're hoping, all right, now we got something else let's distract from our budget. Okay. Budget bad. Now let's go back to attacking Pierre. And that backfired too. But, show the clip for everybody of just.
Well, I've got the image here. So he comes out. Okay. He comes out.
Let's put it into context first.
Okay.
So people know there's been a carbon tax protests across the country along highways, right? Mm-hmm. So everywhere, it's going on for about 3 weeks. And so Pierre Poilievre says, this is the story, that he happened to be driving by one of these and he decided to stop in, and people videotaped him. He didn't have cameraman. He was basically alone. And the footage that was uploaded was from people at the protest. Different people at the protest were chit-chatting with Pierre Poilievre and putting up video of him.
I actually got the clip of it, so I'll let it play as you're describing
it. Do you? Yeah. Sure. One clip, because there's many of them.
We got the donations from everybody that's been stopped.
Yeah, keep describing it, because it's just a clip of
yeah. So he's and I've been to the protest, right? I've seen the same thing. People bring their trailers and their trucks, and they're camping there and whatever. And then if you pause it right there, then some people zoomed in on that little flag. So you and I know what that little flag means.
Yeah,
right? It's a running joke in this country. It's a joke, and it's not a joke, but it's Diagolon. So and I don't know how deep we want to get into Diagolon, but Diagolon. Well, we can get a bit deep in Diagolon. I mean, Diagolon was. Okay, this is what I think about Diagolon. I think Diagolon was a joke. It's people who, it's a group of Canadians who did this sort of parody account. They did these jokes. They might have gone a little bit too far with their jokes. And during the 2 years ago, some again liberals caught on to that and used Diagolon as one of the excuses to implement the Emergency Measures Act in Ottawa, because they were claiming that Diagolon, who's only a joke, was an organization with the aim of overthrowing the Canadian government. Well,
Right.
that's been busted, right? You had people, you had hate. You had Karima
I had Kareem
on your
Assad.
show?
Yeah, Kareem Assad came on the show.
Yeah.
And she she talked about Hategate, who her and Eliza Hattigan put that together. Eliza Hattigan was the primary author of it. I think it was like 80 something pages, and it went into how the anti-hate network, which is basically the Canadian version of the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, which ostensibly what they do is they're a slander racket. So
they're for hire.
Yeah,
if you want a bad article on some group that you don't like, they'll publish it for you, and you can use them as a reference.
Yeah, so they'll say a bunch of stuff about people being racists or misogynists, the whole basket of deplorables thing, and then they'll publish that, and then the news media then can use their article as a source for them to say bad things about you, and then you can't sue the news agencies. You have to go after this other organization, which is all lawyered up, and they'll tie you up in court, and it's just not even worth your time to go after them.
So long story short, Diagolon turned out it was really just a joke, maybe in poor taste, but it was definitely not a full-blown criminal organization that with any structure that was going to overthrow the Canadian government and require the government to implement the Emergency Measures Act. I mean, most of us have figured that out. But this video comes out of Pierre talking to protesters, and somebody painted some graffiti on one door, and all of a sudden, boom, it's the parade of MPs and journalists. Everybody's like, oh my God, Pierre is hanging out with extremists who want to overthrow the government. Is Pierre really prime minister material? Like, they went with that today. And again, they got lambasted, because it's like, wow, you're making fun of Pierre. You're making fun of the fact that Pierre first. Yeah. And people said, why is he meeting with those people to start with? Well, he wasn't meeting with Diagolon. He's meeting with tax protesters.
Yeah.
And he's allowed to meet with whoever he wants. I mean,
I gotta show the clip, because this is Trudeau trying to guilt by association.
Every politician has to make choices about what kind of leader they want to be. Are they a kind of leader that is going to exacerbate divisions, fears, and polarization in our country, make personal attacks, and welcome the support of conspiracy theorists and extremists? Because that's exactly what Pierre Poilievre continues to do, not just when you see him engaging with members of Diagolon, But this
backfired on him.
So it's a backfire. This is a backfire. By the way, the guys from Diagolon, so one of the main guys, Jeremy MacKenzie, not a fan of Pierre Poilievre. In fact, what was it? He took these photos.
I don't think he's a fan of you either.
He's not a fan of me. He's not a fan of me anymore, which is funny. It's incidentally, it was all just because I supported a local candidate in my riding to run for the Conservative Party, and that got the whole crew upset with me. And then later I went and looked into what they're actually saying these days. We can get into that if you want. But so this picture was taken a few years back, and this was when Jeremy was openly a PPC supporter. He was advocating against Pierre, and this was kind of a, hey, check it out. If I do a good picture with this guy, he'll look bad by being next to me. And it was kind of a damning thing. Of course, Pierre doesn't know who the guy was at the time.
That's not very different than me putting on my orange vest and going to the NDP town hall, 2 months ago, and then posing with Joe Cece and some of the, if Rachel Notley had been there, or Naheed Nemshi, I'd have gladly posed with him, and then that picture could show up later on, going like, there you go, Naheed, you're hanging out with freaking Marty Boulanger, a radical from Alberta. But
it's funny. But getting onto the story of how this progressed. these guys were largely unknown until the whole Emergencies Act thing and what happened with the Coots border thing, and then CSIS actually acquitted them. They just saw them as a joke, not really anything radical. But the government really wanted to push this narrative, and that's when this came in, and we heard about it all during the POEC, the inquiry into the Emergencies Act, and it was there to find out what was it all about. It was these guys who have podcasts, and they joked. And Diagolon was a flag that they came up with, and I've got a copy of the flag here. So this is the flag that they show, and it was supposed to signify, like-minded people all the way from Alaska to Florida, and
when you superimpose it over the continent of North America, it goes over Alaska, Alberta, whatever.
Right, which was supposed to be a joke, and it's kind of it was a joke that wasn't even an original joke. It was Kekistan was the one that came from the United States during the last election, or the Trump election. It was a bunch of guys saying a Kek was supposed to be LOL-istan. But this is where I got a kick out of this, because I thought, why not have some other flags that had other jokes that aren't funny anymore, like the chicken crossing the road flag, or even the pulling my finger flag. It's all the same to me at the end of the day.
Well, it'd be like trying to say that Donald Trump is an extremist because he took a picture with Sacha Cohen-Baron, and Sacha Cohen-Baron dressed up as the dictator from one of his movies, or you know what I mean? Like it's a joke, and some, I'm a little divided. I mean, I like Jeremy MacKenzie when he started out, right? Diagolon, like Jeremy. I first discovered Jeremy when he was definitely a jilted veteran who tried to get an audience with Trudeau, and Trudeau wouldn't listen to him. So, do I think he's taken his joke a little bit too far? Yeah, perhaps. But back to today,
Well, the rhetoric's changed, and I've got a clip. I got an old clip from here. This is him back in February 10th, 2020.
I think this is the first time I ever saw him. This is when he was not that. We didn't know him as Diagolon in those days. He was just a veteran.
Right.
My name's Jeremy MacKenzie. I'm a Canadian Forces Afghanistan combat veteran. I deployed with the 2nd Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment in 2007 to fight these people, actually, to fight Omar Khadr's extended family. They all participate. They love the Taliban, which he was a member of. And I absolutely detest and abhor the fact that they would even call him such a thing as a child soldier. Calling him a soldier at all is an insult to the Waffen-SS, let alone me. These are not people that wear uniforms. These are not people that obey things like the rules of war or the Geneva Conventions. They use women and children as human shields. They burn people with acid for not reading the right magic books. They're horrendous. They're monstrous human beings. They were raping children. They didn't care. They would blow up as many of their own civilians as they would do us. It didn't matter at all. And now Canada is leaving $150 million on the table meant for veterans because, well, we just don't have the time for that. While the government spends more money since 1870 than any other government in Canadian history. And in this environment, no, we just don't have enough money. But we will make Omar Khadr, the Taliban terrorist, a multimillionaire. And we're going to tell everybody that's got a problem with that to leave the building and leave the premises, including me, including other Canadian Forces veterans. And I have to be here to say this because many of the people from my platoon that were killed by Omar Khadr's little club aren't here to say that anymore. They're all dead. Chris Stanix isn't here anymore. Sergeant Donnie Lucas isn't here anymore. So that's why I'm here, because this is outrageous. This is a travesty. And I'm sick of staying home and staying on the couch and watching everybody just not say anything, because this is wrong. This is not what Canada stands for. It's not the country that I signed up to fight for, and it is certainly not the country that those men and women died for when I was over there fighting against him and his family and his friends. So I guess I'm the bad guy now. If that's how it's going to be, then that's how it's going to be.
Powerful words.
Yeah,
it really was.
And I mean, I remember most of us who saw that the first time. I think that was right after, like that must have been after the time when that wounded veteran spoke to Trudeau about having to fight the government, and Trudeau said, we're fighting you because you're asking for more than we can afford. So I think that's the context there. Jeremy was definitely angry. I kind of wish that he was still that person and fighting the government that way versus the humor that he's chosen. But I get what he's doing.
Well, we heard about the humor because Pierre Poilievre made a statement over a year ago now, after there was a drunken rant and there was some jokes about actually really bad stuff about Pierre Poilievre's wife. And I've made a video about that. Perhaps I can leave a link in the description down below where people can check that out.
But so let's bring it to today. So the Liberals now took this.
Well,
video
before we get to there, I do want to touch on this, and this is kind of a lesson of echo chambers. Like when people get, when censorship comes in and people get pushed into an echo chamber, how extremism can happen. Like people can. Their ideas can go, you're not being checked, you're not being challenged by other people a lot of times. And where does it go from there? Where does it go? And now some of the rhetoric coming out of that camp, like the Diagolon thing, I don't even know a lot of the Diagolon guys or people who like Diagolon or the idea of the joke know about the rhetoric that's coming out of it recently. And this, I just have to show this clip because it's like, oh man, like, this is where we don't want to go with rhetoric, and I'll just play this clip.
This paleo.
By the way, this is Ferryman's Toll. He's a regular with Jeremy MacKenzie and Derek Rance. They do a show together.
Conservatism or libertarianism, that's all fine. They act like the establishment acts like that's like their mortal enemy, but really that's the show. That's how it's controlled opposition, because all of the people pushing it are allowed to continue pushing it. What they really despise is white identitarianism. And the reason they despise it is because they know that if white people see themselves as a collective and start acting in their own collective group interests, there's nothing in the fucking world that can stop them. That's the truth.
It's not the kind of rhetoric that I could get on with. Of course, I don't know how I'm one of those race mixers, so I can't get into that kind of club. And it's really an interesting story because full circle, we all know Rachel Gilmore. She's
oh man, we're going there.
Okay, so she's another one of those peddlers that likes to peddle that other people are bad people for this reason or that reason. She had a recent video that she put out bad mouthing these guys, and this is where I found it kind of interesting. And I'll play the clip here.
Just accidentally platformed a man decked out in the garb of the far-right extremist group Diagolon. And it wasn't even the first time. Here's what's going on. As I've reported many times before, Diagolon is a far-right group that likes to pretend it's just a meme. While its prominent members expose its communities of thousands of people to stuff like this interview with an Australian neo-Nazi.
And what World War II represents is a man, Adolf Hitler, that went up against the Jews at every step of the way, and he almost freed all white people from the Jewish slavery up until the point where it became a world war. So the principle of what we can learn from World War II is let's do this again, but let's this time no more brothers wars.
After seeing their symbol, that white slash thing, on CBC, Diagolon members have been celebrating, claiming it as some kind of pathetic victory. But my takeaway on this is that we need way more extremism reporting in this country. But unfortunately, newsrooms with some of the best extremism reporting in the country continue laying off their journalists.
Like her. So she got laid off because she's one of
she's a self-proclaimed
journalist,
journalist,
award-winning, I think. But she
has a real hate on for Diagolon.
She does.
I don't understand her obsession. Like she's really obsessive about this. But hey,
well, the thing is, so she's made a career out of telling people that other people are bad guys or racists or all this other stuff. But sometimes it seems like this time she's actually kind of onto something, and it's really weird because it's like nobody believes her at this point. She's like
take your picture off the screen, please. I can't.
But so it's like a broken clock can be right twice a day, right? And it's
twice a day. Yeah.
It's really such an interesting story, and I just like as a takeaway, I always just, if you're advocating for a group or you're wearing pendants or any of this stuff, know where the group's going, because you never know what kind of rhetoric's coming out of it, and you might not completely agree with the stuff. And well,
I mean, pendant I find offensive these days is not the Diagolon one. It's the one that Guilbeault wears and the other ones. That United Nations Agenda 30 circular one. I find that one offensive.
They're calling that one the Schwabstica.
Is it? Okay.
Because
okay.
Klaus Schwab and yeah. So it's
yeah.
So that's his.
Hey, do you think? Boy, we're going all over the place. Do you think he's really sick? Is he in the hospital?
Oh, I don't.
We never got
I doubt that's real.
I doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah, I doubt that's real.
But so all right. So now let's go to today. So the Liberals tried to, they brought out everyone saying, is Pierre really the leader? He's hanging out with Diagolon. Okay. Even if Diagolon was real, okay, you could say, why is he talking to radicals? That's fine. But to all those Liberals who came out today, they got lambasted. It's like you guys brought out a Nazi to the House of Commons and gave him a standing ovation. Is Trudeau really the leader we want? Like, I mean, so they don't even think
not only this,
tweet,
like you can't control who advocates for you. You can't control who's going to come out and endorse you. I mean, because the Diagolon thing, it happened to be he stopped at a protest and these people were there, and who knows who drew that on there, whatever. As well as the whole Alex Jones thing, which also blew up in their face. Because how many people actually love Alex Jones? Like, to be honest, even though he said some crazy kooky things, he got sued over the stuff that he said about Sandy Hook, and that's awful what he said. But he even said that it was awful. Nobody can have forgiveness, and not only that, they guilt by association.
I mean, I want to know who Trudeau really hangs out with. I'm more worried about the potential that Trudeau might be hanging out with the Clintons or Epstein or whatever. Never mind that, Pierre's hanging out with a couple of clowns who have a comedy show and do some skits. Okay, great. And he's hanging out with, Alex Jones. And he's not, by the way, hanging out with Alex Jones. That's just Alex Jones saying, I like him.
And he's not hanging out with Diagolon. If he knew that was part of it, he already threatened to call the RCMP on Jeremy MacKenzie at one point because of that joke, right? So I mean, Whoopi Goldberg endorses Trudeau. Well, holy shit, that tells me that. Anyways, we're getting weirdly sidetracked, but so it's just a bad week for the Liberals. They tried to bring this one out, and again, they're just everything. They're getting ratioed like ad nauseum. I mean, as soon as they post anything, everybody's like blah 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 blah. Sit down, go away. I mean, we literally need it's a shame that we're going to have to wait 2 years for an election, because they're almost incapable of ruling at this point. And I'm still curious to see what happens next week. I mean, there's still a giant rumor that Jagmeet might defeat the budget. I mean, I don't think he ever will, but I mean, it's slipping for him, man. It's like he's losing. Jagmeet, the NDP are losing huge traction, and they're losing it to the Conservatives already and to the Bloc, almost to the Green at this point. I mean, Jagmeet and Trudeau are both going to drive their parties into the ground. I think that's the direction that they're going to go, because I see it that they both realize that they have no political careers. Both leaders, both cabinets, essentially. I mean, Trudeau's cabinet and whoever's on top in the NDP, their careers are over after this. So why not ride it out until they can, and just ram as much stuff through with their quasi majority that they can in the meantime? Because why would they trigger an election and lose power? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I agree, and it's an interesting question. Like, where will Trudeau end up? Everybody says he either leaves the country or he gets a cushy assignment at the United Nations or something like that. I think Freeland will probably land at the UN.
I thought Guilbeault NATO was her.
Back to being
she was
or NATO. Yeah, Guilbeault will be nobody. He'll go back to being an activist, and then the other MPs that have tried to, like the Sean Frasers of the world and those guys right now that are thrown into this, they're just ruining their future careers. Some of them will get picked up in PR and then the odd law firm here and there. But yeah, you're right. It's
Well, there's
what
that
a
revolving
week.
door of Ottawa. That's the way it works all throughout the city.
They can go work for GC Strategies.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, let's talk about this story real quick.
Okay.
It's related to GC Strategies. It's similar to GC Strategies. So I don't know if we talked about it last week, but hidden in the budget last week was another $39 million for the vaccine injury program. Okay. And the vaccine injury program, and it's not specific to COVID, it's associated with COVID, but it's if you get injured by a vaccine in this country, there's a vaccine, you can make a claim to the government and then you can go get some money.
Mm-hmm.
And the government had committed $75 million in 2022 for this, added another 39 last week. That's fine. I didn't even think anything about it too much, but then today a story broke. The program is administered by a Quebec company similar to GC Strategies. And now people are doing some math, the Andy Lees of the world or whoever was doing it. This program got this company from Quebec paid out $11 million in injury claims, but so far they've received $45 million from the government, and now they're about to get another $39 million. So it's just ongoing with the Liberals, right? It's just more, which brings up so many questions to me. Like we have 300,000 civil servants. We keep bringing that. We brought this up with ArriveCan, right?
Yeah.
We got there's nobody in the government can do ArriveCan, and nobody in the government can administer a little program where you might pay out, some compensation for injuries, like the workers' compensation board. They couldn't have just made it. I mean, that's a solution, right? There's a workers' compensation board with every province. You could have made it a subsidiary of that, but no, government takes hundreds of millions and gives it to a private contractor, and then we never see the. We never see the money. Yeah, is that the article there?
That's the artiticle. Yeah, this is the.
That's one article.
Yeah, one article on Ottawa injecting another $36 million into fund those seriously injured or killed by the vaccines. Yeah, I gotta tread.
So that was the first news,
that.
but the second news is that the second news to me was that it's not a program administered by the Canadian government. I mean, oh my God, here we go again, right?
Yeah, so what do all those thousands of workers actually do for the government? They just sit around, collect a check.
They process income tax returns. What else?
Well, that's CRA.
Passports. CRA. There must be. I don't know. Yeah.
You have specific divisions. You think that
we have 350,000 workers in the federal government, not counting the military and not counting,
and yet they can't implement any of this stuff. They can't do any of it. They pass the buck to private enterprises that overcharge on these bids. Yep. That's the Canadian government.
Single source contracts with no controls and no supervision. Well, welcome to Canada. And then what could you do with 39 million? God. How many homes could we actually build? But that's a whole other story, right? Actually, based on how many minutes have elapsed since last week, the government should have built probably 14,000 homes last week. I wonder how many they built.
None. I'm going to say none. I'm going to go out on a limb and just gamble that one away. I'll put the house on it. But the house I don't own because I can't get one in this damn country. But you just reminded me of another story, and this is Edison Motors out here in British Columbia. Yep. I got in touch with Chase. He's the CEO and president of Edison Motors. We're gonna have him on in a couple of weeks. He's out of town at the moment, but he was in an interview recently, and I don't have the clip up anymore. But he was in an interview, and they were talking about this whole situation because he's been in the news over the grants, the green
energy grants of the BC government.
Yeah, and there's this entity that gives out the grants, but they're also the ones that sign off on the grants, and they're also the ones that help you get the grant.
They're the grantor, the grantee, and the approver of the grants or whatever.
And the people that help you write the paperwork to get the grant. And if you don't use them, your chances of being granted by them are very low. you get out.
They only charge 20%, and they only charge 20%.
Well, they charge exorbitant fees and then 20% on top of it. Right. It's massive. So it's a huge scam. Now, in this interview with Chase, Chase Barber, incidentally, the interviewer asked, like, hey, were you approached recently from American states to bring your business over there? And he said, yeah, actually a few states have approached him to move out of Canada. They'll have land allocated to them. They'll have grants given to them, all kinds of helping hands.
Lower taxes, all sorts of incentives, real incentives, not fake ones.
Not fake ones. And here you go. Please bring this business to our country or to our state, they're saying. Arizona was one that he named. I think a few others gave him offers. But this is the reality, the situation on the ground in Canada. If you have a winning company that does well, has a good idea, especially in the green space, man, the US wants to scoop everybody up right now. And Canada is doing the exact opposite. They're trying to get everyone to leave.
Think of the boxes that Edison Motors checked off, right? Canadian, in the right environment, in the right province, British Columbia, in the right space, electric vehicles, in the right in innovation, technology. Probably had a couple of native guys on the team, maybe a couple of women. They checked off
industrial
so many
capacity, massive.
The only box they didn't check off is they weren't willing to play the corrupt political game. And good for them. Good for you, Chase. Like, don't play their game, man. Yeah, go some. Well, and that, I mean, you'll bring him on. You'll cover the story. He even said he didn't even want to apply for the grants. He wasn't interested in, because he was doing so well on his own, had all this private capital. Everything's fine. He's an example of a guy who's like, just get out of my way and let me do my thing, right? And then he applies for a grant and he gets rejected. And then he learns that he's got rejected because he's not playing the game. Oh my God. Yeah, bring him on. I look forward to that interview.
I really look forward to it as well.
Hey, we have one more story that we were going to talk about. I don't know if
yeah, we can do it.
Back to the Conservatives losing ground, right? I mean, we joked that they is Pierre really the guy, and then we all laughed at them, going, "You invited a Nazi." Well, that Nazi they invited in the House of Commons is haunting them forever and ever. I mean, this week was again there was the protest on the weekend in Ottawa, right? For I'm not taking a side, but there's the Palestinians protesting and the Israelis fight, and then suddenly the Liberals started taking a side. So now they're coming out saying this protest was inappropriate and everything else. And it fell on deaf ears. It's like, well, no, you lost the moral high ground on that one. You can't criticize this protest when you brought a Nazi in the House of Commons, and you can't criticize it unless you bring out the horses and trample them and freeze their bank accounts. Just severe words don't mean nothing. So the Liberals, like, a lot of these things are coming back to haunt them, and Canadians are waking up and not giving them the pass that they're hoping. We're not letting stuff slide by anymore. I find we're holding the Liberals more and more to accounts. Maybe it's me because I'm in that world and Twitter, but it seems that the end is near for them.
Yeah, well, when it comes to these protests, like, it was only a few weeks ago that the police were coming out and bringing them coffee, which I thought was really interesting considering what they did to the Freedom Convoy protesters. They were peaceful the entire time. They had hot tubs and bouncy castles. Like, they weren't harassing an entire race of individuals in the country. This is where, like, this whole thing pivots on. Now, you don't have to take a side to say it's wrong to target a race of people. It's wrong to target a race of people, right. Period. They, especially Canadians that live in Canada, maybe they have an ethnicity, but it doesn't mean they have anything to do with anything that's going on overseas. You don't know that, and you can't assume that. So bug off, like, everybody's free to live their lives in Canada, but you have the right to protest about whatever it is that you want to protest. But you just don't have the right to bring that kind of
I mean, it sure looked like the Liberals were taking a side at the protest this week. I mean, most of us can do the math. How many Jewish descendants are living in Canada versus Arab descendants living in Canada? I mean, I think they're picking a side for political gains, and it's just going to backfire. I mean, well, if it backfires, then I'll be happy, but I'm not happy because a government picking a side in something like this is not good, not a good sign.
No, and where I was just about to get into the whole fact that the police were out bringing them coffees. My gut instinct from that was it's because they're so damn divisive. Yeah, they want divisiveness in the country. They want to see that happening. They didn't like the Freedom Convoy because this was bringing people together. Even people that are today being divisive, in this group or that group, at the time during the Freedom Convoy were very uniting. And this is the whole idea. And I want to get back to that. I want to get back to this whole concept of bringing all Canadians together under one flag, under one idea of being Canadian. It doesn't matter where you came from, if you're a first generation Canadian or a 10th or a 30th generation Canadian, you're Canadian. You just show that that's what you care about, and everybody should be in alliance with that.
And unfortunately, this prime minister has made division one of his. It's one of the key tools in his toolbox, right? I mean, look at the budget last week. I mean, the fact that he went as far as saying, equity for all generations. He de facto made it a divisive thing. He now added generational division. I mean, I had a running list. I mean, Trudeau, like I said before, he'll talk in French and say one thing, and then he'll talk to the rest of Canada and say something else. So, I always pointed out the obvious divisions: French versus English, Eastern Canada versus Western Canada. But when you look at Trudeau, man, it goes down a long list, right? Like private sector versus unions, natives versus non-natives, parents versus trans. I mean, this guy, like, if there's an issue that he can divide people on, he'll go down that path.
Oh, he even pulled out the old abortion debate last year. I mean, it was out of the blue too. He just came out of nowhere and accused somebody of being against abortion. I mean, it's crazy. He'll just use anything to drive a wedge between individuals, and this is no different. This intergenerational warfare stuff that he's trying to pull out, and we know there's animosity right now. You talk about the boomers, they get mad, they get upset, but there is animosity, and Trudeau he's just going to grab onto that, and he's going to use it as a tool, like he's done it with everybody else.
Somebody just offer the guy a job. I mean, we saw the picture this week. Maybe he likes teaching. Maybe he genuinely likes teaching. Fuck, somebody give him a teaching job, man. Pay him $1 million a year. Nah, don't give him a job. What am I saying? That's not how I want to see him.
No, we need to get him out of his job right now. That's the goal.
I'm doing good right now, Clyde. I haven't drank for a couple of months since Christmas. I'm exercising, keeping the blood pressure low.
All right, Marty, where can people find you?
Two places: Marty Up North on Twitter and Marty Up North on YouTube. I haven't put much on YouTube lately, but heading off on a hike this weekend. First hike of what I call the summer season. So hopefully I'll put up a little video next week when I come back. But find me on Twitter mostly. Interact with me, folks. I love answering questions. I interact a lot.
Awesome. And
I love Twitter. Actually,
when you're retired now, so you have the time to do it.
Oh, actually, I have if we can talk quickly personal things, I have a busy time right now. It's very, very, very fulfilling right now. My daughter just bought a condo, which is very exciting.
Oh, she got it?
My youngest, she got a condo.
Okay.
Yeah, she got the condo. My youngest son, or my middle son, finished his last exam on Friday of his 4th year of engineering. So he's done. So now he's looking for work. And I got a couple of things on the go. So yeah, things are good right now. It feels busy, feels good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm feeling busy on the personal note. I'm getting kicked out of my place,
I'm sure
and
you are.
I gotta find a new home. Maybe I'll end up neighbors with your son down in Texas somewhere.
I tweeted about that. I think he's holding off. He's part of the brain drain. He wants to. He actually applied at SpaceX. I'm like, holy shit, man! You want to talk over the moon, proud father? Like, if one of my sons got hired on by SpaceX, I'd move to Texas, or I'd move to the US. Because I'd want to go see him at work every day. What's this button do? No, don't touch that, Dad.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'll leave all the links are in the description down below. Go check them out. Check out Marty on social media and on YouTube if you want to check out those hiking videos. We'll see you in the next one next week.
Cheers, folks.